All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Sky Pirate Actual. I'm back here again with my good friend, the emergency expert. Chris, you want to go ahead and plug yourself?
Sure. What's going on, everybody? This is the emergency expert, aka Chris. I'm here with Get Prepared is my company. I specialize in specifically emergency preparedness, personal security, mindset, and just self-reliance, things along those lines. I think anybody who gets just a little bit more preparedness in their life makes it a lot easier for them to succeed in any environment. And so for me, giving people that peace of mind is really what makes me happy and gets me going. So that's what I'm all about. I'm also got a little bit of a background in the military, nothing too crazy, and I've done a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about, playing around in cities and escaping cities and doing things like that, which we're back at it for part two.
For part two. Yeah, so if you guys weren't there for part one, it's definitely up on my page. So we chopped this up into two halves. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead. We're going to hop into part two hot and heavy.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and do it.
Of posture and those different patterns of gait. At least that's what I use. What about you, buddy?
So it's really not that hard, like Mike was saying. The other thing that you can also do is put in the universal sign of "Leave me the f alone." Earphones. Have your phone out, or something that looks like a phone, even just some random phone case that you can find in the trash that might even be broken. People see it as the universal sign of I'm not paying attention to you, and I don't care as to what anybody else is doing around me.
Now, as we're moving along, there are going to be things that we can possibly collect to make our life easier. So, unfortunately, Fife has found a wonderful water bottle.
Unfortunately, this is great.
And this is going to bring us to our point of water. So when it comes to water and food, there's one that you really can't go without. Now, me and Fife both know that you can go really 3 days before you die without water. But what happens after about a day without water?
Oh, you're garbage. You're making bad decisions. You're doing stupid stuff. You can barely function. Your body starts cramping up. It's a really bad time.
Day 2, you can hardly open your hands. They're so cramped.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. All right, so we both have spent a pretty significant amount of time overseas. As far as the water thing goes, right? If you're sitting in, arid conditions, super duper hot, where Iraq, Afghanistan, 120, 130 degrees during the daytime, the water thing is definitely understandable, for sure. In the United States, I don't think it's anywhere near that bad. I've gone multiple days without water in the United States while also being active. So it's not nearly that bad when you're when you're CONUS and you're dealing with this.
Here's what I'll say. It depends on the individual.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
I know guys like me, like I'm very conservative. My body has a weird way of understanding like my situation. Like if I know that water's going to be scarce, like I can sip all day and only, maybe use up a canteen, right? Like a quart,
Yeah.
2 quarts until I need. But I know guys that are water buffaloes, man. Like
Yeah.
they will crush a bottle every hour on the hour if you give it to them, and you have to really. We had a comms guy that like drank up all of our spare water and Gatorade just because he was a big dude, and everyone came down, down the hill, basically pissing what looked like Jack Daniels. So it really depends on the individual, but if you have, with any of this stuff, if you pre-plan this, you should at least have some way of filtering water with you, or a water bottle or something of that nature. Like, I don't know how dire the situation has gotten for these two.
Yeah.
I saw his pink water bottle.
Yeah. It's the timetable that's not really adding up for me, because if this is a all of a sudden event, I'm not expecting this to last for 2 days.
Yeah.
Even at the worst, I'm not expecting this to last 48 hours. There is not. I don't think there's a single city on the planet that it would take you over 2 days to get out of.
And the thing is, too, like that a lot of people don't realize is that there's a big difference between a siege and like a civil unrest. Mm-hmm. And like with civil unrest, if you're not part of the group being targeted in some fashion and you're not in like a high risk zone, all you have to do is sit tight. keep your keep your doors locked, keep that protection with you, but like keep lights off in your house, don't draw attention to yourself, and just ride it out. That's the best thing you can do if you don't have any other options. But like, with a siege, it's a different story because you're going house to house a lot of times. And they're closing in. So it all depends on what the scenario is. But yeah, I with me, I always have a water bottle on me. It's like second nature.
Like I have a case of water in my car usually at all times.
Same here. It's a habit that like, if you've backpacked or anything, or you've done any sort of like activity where you've gotten back to your car without water, you're like, how easy it is just to throw a 20 pack back here, and in case you need to give it to someone and they need it, because that always happens too. But yeah, well, I wonder where they're going with this. I don't want we're getting super critical right off the bat. So like, listen,
I know.
I'll preface this. We're not judging, Garand Thumb. We're just giving a little bit of feedback here in context because it's only a 32-minute video, and we need, people need the realness. But yeah, just want to preface that.
All right.
So you have to understand, if you're going to want to actually be able to get out of the city, and it really shouldn't take you that long, you need to have water. Now, there's a lot of different considerations when it comes to water. Fife is going to talk about that right now if you want to go ahead and delve into it.
Yeah, so when it comes to water, most cities, if it's still functioning, the water filtration system is going to be your best friend. All you have to do is find a spigot, a fountain, or anything else like that, and a good, clean source of water. This one, honestly, it's pretty damn...
It's not too bad at all.
Yeah.
Wash it out, you're going to be okay.
But once you can find that, you have to be able to find a spigot, turn it on, collect it from there. The problem is that most cities, during either catastrophes of any sort, the water system and electricity all get shut off eventually, sometimes sooner than others. So you have to find a different way of collecting water. Some of that might be tributary streams, doing a transpiration or vegetation bag over plants, using trash bags and things of that nature. But there's a lot of different ways, and you still have to clean that water before you actually ingest it. So that's when you go with either iodine that you might have procured from a medical kit somewhere, or bleach, fluorinated bleach, things of that nature, or even improvising your own charcoal filter out of multiple water bottles in order to still clean it and make it drinkable.
Do you want to explain how to make those water filters? It's actually pretty interesting.
So these guys are awesome.
Hold on, let's stop there. So I'm going to give the formula for people right now. It's 8 drops of bleach per 1 gallon of water. All right. Make sure you pre-filter your water so that you have most of the debris and any sort of sediment or floaters. You can take that out using a t-shirt or a sock. 8 drops of bleach, and you have to let it evaporate off the surface of the water. Typically, give it 30 minutes. Most experts say an hour, but if it's an open top container, it's not like a tight concentrate. Just give it at least 30 minutes. You can agitate it while it does that. Will help it, evaporate off the chlorine. But that's the formula for bleach. That's a really easy one. And make sure you use unscented. Don't use lemon scented bleach. It's not going to give you lemon flavored water. I promise. Not at all, dude. No, it doesn't give you a bad time. Is what it's going to give you. So,
oh man,
you gotta say it, man. You gotta say it.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. There's every time you see a sign that says "Do not do this thing," it's because someone did that thing. Yeah. So, something interesting you said. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
So you said most cities shut off utilities during like major disasters and stuff like that. Yes, major disasters, you're probably not wrong, but during civil unrest, no. So it doesn't really apply to this specific scenario. Like they're not shutting off utilities for a major unrest. That's not it.
Only time that's going to happen is if there's like a breach at a substation or something of that nature, and that's how they disrupt it.
Yes. So if you're still able to go into buildings fairly free flowing, and at worst, you could look up a silk-cock key, right? So a silk-cock key, there are spouts on the outside of pretty much every building known to exist in major cities.
I have one.
Oh, all right, cool. Chris is actually going to
Where's
show
that?
us one right now.
Like this is my work bag. It's just a basic 17-liter backpack, and like I have a Silcock teeth in there specifically to access water in case something happens. Here we go. And this one's pretty cool too because it has a bunch of
Ooh, that's a fancy one.
different spouts you might come up against for different spigots, and it has that little grid right there, so you can put in like a drill bit, so like a Phillips or a flathead screwdriver, and you can use that as well. So I think I got this thing off of either Amazon or something like that.
Super
But they're
easy to
solid. I mean, it's
definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
It's a $4 investment. If you buy it off Amazon, it's probably going to cost you 10 just because you're not getting that Ace Hardware or someplace like that where it's sitting, in the plumbing section. But I'd much rather have that than do what they're about to show us, which is make a water bottle filter with random, city leaves, charcoal, and whatever else. Like I'd much rather just use a spigot that everyone in the city is drinking out of. So,
which I'm also kind of curious of where they got this charcoal from. Is it something that they're EDCing or
that's the other side of this that it's like it's not a bad methodology to learn for like if you're stranded out somewhere more rural or something of that nature, but like there's just elements of that just don't make sense for urban.
The current, yes,
correct,
for the current
for
context.
urban.
Yes, agreed. All right, let's go ahead and run it up.
First thing that you would put into it is charcoal, and that would be down at the base, followed by rocks, sand, grass, pebbles, things of that nature. And you're layering it in a system of coarse up top, or fine up top, down to coarse at the bottom, and charcoal is the last. And you would just pour it all into these little guys here. Through the top. So the bottom here would have charcoal right about here. And you have your pebbles, smaller pebbles, sand, and you put mesh cloths or square pieces of t-shirt on either end, and you just start pouring your water into the top. Dirty water goes in the top, clean water comes out the bottom.
Pretty simple. It does run slow, and that's the only thing that kind of sucks about it. But in these really war-torn environments or environments where natural disasters have struck the water system, that's going to be something that you might have to do. One other consideration is going to be chemicals. So especially from runoff from streets into rivers like that are right by cities, or even in like water sources that you could possibly collect, it's good to do a sniff test. So if it smells like gasoline, it smells like oil, it smells like something that's non-palatable, you're not going to want to drink that. No matter how much filtration you do, it's going to be very difficult to get those chemicals out, and you probably don't have the time to do it. That's something that we had a problem with a lot of the cities, with those rivers that run through those cities, where there's so much of this exhaust and everything that gets into those rivers that they're almost undrinkable.
Even just the bleed off from the traffic on the streets going into the gutters and then going into those streams and rivers and everything else like that, it becomes pretty bad.
The other problem is going to be even trees. So there can be like pools of water, and if you get a bunch of leaves in there, it'll actually leach a lot of the chemicals and a lot of the stuff out of the leaves, and that will cause like horrific diarrhea. Ask me how I know. It could possibly kill you. We've both been through that. It's horrible. So if possible, the things that I've used gutters, like especially like rain gutters up on tops of buildings. I've used like natural collection points, especially like further away from roads. If you have like natural divots in concrete and stuff, something that you're able to sip up, that works really well. Rainwater is great. The all classic socks tied around your ankles and going through like grass or dew is a really good way of collecting water. Just to squeeze that right into your mouth. The point is, get that water by any means possible, because you're going to be non-functional without it. And especially if you're going out past the city and you need to collect it, start collecting that before you get out of there. And that also is going to bring us to another point. If you're going somewhere where you're actually going to get back to civilization, you're simply escaping a force, it's important to have, if you drink some really weird water, keep a little bit of it with you. That way when you get to that medical facility, you can be like, this is what I drink. Am I going to die?
Yeah, and the answer might be yes, but at least they can give you something to make you comfortable. You know, worst case scenario. But that's just one of the things that you might run into, drinking shit that you don't want to, but you have to.
Yeah, here in Garand Thumbs, we always harp physical fitness, but guess what? Now we're sponsored by First Fit. That means that we're more fit than ever. But go and check them out. We love them. And a big thank you to them for sponsoring. They have tons of great stuff from protein powders to greens and reds. We use it all. Actually, we do. I've used it for a long time.
Oh gosh.
So we're looking for another hide site somewhere to sleep for the night. Things get a little crazy right now during the night.
Let's pause this
Right
real
along
quick.
this
Let's
park
pause this
right
real quick.
here.
I knew it was coming.
We're gonna go ahead and hop over there and just kind of.
I knew it was coming, dude. I was waiting
All
for
right.
it.
All right, so
Oh, man.
don't like until you learn how to do that properly. Do not make like a reverse osmosis water bottle filtration. Like, just carry. So look, I'll show you the easiest way to do it. This is a multi-tool I carry every day. All right, pouch is big enough to have multi-tool, and then I also keep normally matches and then a metal water bottle. Right, you can boil water wherever you go, and all you need is that lighter, and you can purify water. Right, or keep a couple tablets on you. It's not that bad. I got some that were lying right around here somewhere, but they're in my bag now probably, and it's easy. They're easy to carry, and you can carry a bunch of them. But like trying to procure water like that in an urban environment, like people don't realize all the most toxic thing that's getting produced by vehicles today is not the actual fumes, it's the grinding of the brakes and the shearing of that material whenever you press your brakes, which slows you down through friction, gets sprayed into the air, gets sprayed on the ground, and it gets blown around. And then he's saying collect rainwater from gutters. It's like all that stuff along with pigeon poop and all this other stuff is collecting on top of that roof along with whatever trash someone dumped up there. And you want to collect water out of the gutter? Come on, dog.
I'm also wondering, like, how the fuck are they getting up on top of the roofs to collect these?
No, I think they're saying at the bottom of the gutter, like the rainwater rinsing down. That's what I'm saying. In that, like, I'm like, no, like, please don't do that. Like, don't drink gutter water. Like, that's not a good idea. I mean, especially in a city.
Yeah, I'm about to say, if you're on like you're on your way out, is either drink something or die of thirst. I mean,
then give it a shot.
Yeah, give it a shot. Which I think that might be what he's looking for. Maybe that's what he's trying to talk about.
Yeah, I get it.
But also, an investment is probably something like this. So a Grail GeoPress.
I got mine upstairs.
I literally have carried this on the mountains with me. I think I only carried it once though. So, but literally, it is you literally scoop up water and then you literally just pop open the top here.
Press.
So you pop open the top and then you literally press it into, and it's filtering through clean water as you press it down. So I'm a firm believer of invest in some good shit that you will actually use every day. And granted, do I find myself filtering water every day? Fucking no. But it also, if you're just using it for water every day, that's not an issue either. If you're just pouring it straight into the bottle and you're not utilizing the actual
and that's why it's really simple to just get like a single walled steel water bottle. Like that's what I have. I have the one from Dave Canterbury's Self-Reliant. It's like it has a nesting cup that I can always add to it and put it with, but it's simple and it goes with me everywhere. And I can always use it to boil water. You know what I mean? As long as you can start a fire, you can have clean water with that thing with you. And yeah. So yeah, that kind of stuff, I'm like, it's cool, but like you have to truly demonstrate it, demonstrate the skill. Like otherwise people are going to try this shit and
possibly hurt.
It's not going to go well, which is why they say, they have their disclaimers. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get. You want to jump into the side site? Let's see what this is all.
Yeah, let's jump into the not hide site. All right.
I nestle down into a little bush and go to sleep.
No, I'll catch up. There we go.
Pretty
Oh, of course.
Of course.
game.
Oh,
You're not ready for it.
about to hop into the good stuff.
Classic
man.
spot. You see a lot of people sleep in these types of areas, and that actually can play to your advantage. So whether you have a lot of vagrants, hobos living in an area, being able to blend into that population might not be such a bad idea. And also finding areas that are a little bit harder to get to, even within those normal areas, can play to your advantage. So Fife right here is going to hop up. It's very flexible. Come on, buddy.
There you go. Nice. You know the top of that pillar is so dirty. And he's like, I'm regretting.
This is going to be a site where we can hide, we can sleep. We're, of course, going to set watches. You're never both going to be asleep at the same time. We can collect our things and figure out what the next step is going to be. Now, another great thing about these areas that are kind of secluded, people do a lot of weird shit out here. So whether it be kids getting down or what have you, sometimes it's possible to find clothing out here. So this is something that I've done. I found, t-shirts covered in vomit or different things I can change my appearance. That's all going to be something that I can do that can play to my advantage in changing my appearance. This is also going to be a good area where I'm going to be able to sleep, and it's going to help me out. So this is going to be our hide site. Now we're going to talk about what we can do at this hide site as well. And right here, we actually do have examples of caches of stuff from various hobos, as we can see right over there. So from clothes to bedding to what have you. We're not condoning stealing, but at the same time, it's procuring another man's, one man's trash, another man's treasure. Also, if you've done something like that where you're procuring things, don't ever go back to where you procured that stuff from. Don't go back to
That's a good piece of advice.
In R3 in Minecraft.
Good piece of advice.
So when we're swapping, we can make it look, again, like we're different people walking around and changing our outlook and appearance. Along with that, we also want to change our gait, maybe swap gear, bags, because now if they're looking for a person that was wearing a rain jacket and a brown backpack with short hair, well, wrong person. Same thing, long-haired hippie dude with a drug rug on, short hair, different pants, different bag, right?
Another great thing is going to be I have procured over my time traveling different things as well. So I have a different t-shirt that I have on my bag. I also have a different hat that I can wear. So depending on where I am, have that hat turned forward, turned backwards, depending on whatever the style is. This is also going to help conceal my face, especially from cameras. You have to realize that within the city, you're always going to be observed.
Yeah, cameras are everywhere. Every single one of those buildings that we walked by today had security cameras on every corner, every flat face of it. There's no way of getting around inside of a big city.
And with AI recognition technology, it's very difficult to get around it. This is the nice thing about if there are certain riots with certain people who wear masks all the time. That's really nice because it makes it very difficult for AI recognition to be able to pinpoint that. So if that's something that I can use to my advantage, everyone's already wearing face masks and running around.
Grab one.
Don't steal, don't assault people. Yeah, be like, hey, I'm on your side. Can I have an extra mask? I don't want to be caught. So these are things to use to your advantage. But you have to understand the longer you're in the city, especially if you're being hunted, you're probably going to eventually be identified by AI technology no matter what you do.
With this urban environment, if I'm trying to do evasion or trying to move through it without being noticed, my biggest goal is to get out of it. I don't want to be here. This is the most difficult and dangerous place to be during conflicts. You need to leave as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible, but also with enough gear and equipment that you'll be able to sustain yourself once you actually leave all these resources that the urban environment does provide.
Now, in today's example, everything went to shit when me and Fife were out just having a day in the town, and we need to get back to our families. Now, night has fallen. We've sat in our hide site. We've each taken about a little cat nap of about an hour to kind of replenish ourselves. We've gotten some water. We're feeling pretty good. But what we're gonna do at this point is procure a little bit of food and then continue on our journey out of here.
All right,
so we'll go ahead and break out from our hide site. If we want to make sure that we're not leaving any evidence that we were there, trying to naturalize it.
So one thing I want to say about kind of what they're talking about with the hobo side of it and hobo stuff is like understanding how homeless people move through cities is going to give you such insight on how to move through a city effectively and avoid people. One of the easiest ways to learn this stuff is to go on a bike trail to any large city and watch all the little side foot trails that kind of veer off in various different sections of the city. We call this the hobo highway, right? They'll usually parallel train tracks that allows the hobo to travel both on a public space where they can go and find a place maybe at the panhandle, but also travel in darkness where they're not going to really be observed, which is through the train tracks. So like in Philly, for example, I used to live right along the bike trail. There was the river bike trail, and then there was a set of train tracks as well. And so I could go, and there's certain parts where the fence was peeled back, but then it was put back to look like it was still intact. Or there was a pallet that was pushed up in the corner of where these two fences intersect. So you could use it as basically a step ladder, step on the shorter fence, and then hop over the larger fence. And so knowing these places and these things, not to mention the bike trail itself, provides if you're on foot at night, there is some inherent danger. But like if it was two guys like this walking together at night on the bike trail, no one's going to mess with them.
Not a problem.
And they're going to be completely off the radar in most places unless you have a law enforcement that actually patrols the bike trail. And even then, if you're just hanging out and walking, they're not going to hassle you for the most part.
Yeah.
It all depends on how you look, though. Like a lot of that comes down to how you present yourself when they roll up on them, and if you say good evening and stuff like that. So
yeah. Another thing. I'm sorry. What up?
I was gonna say the big thing that most people need to realize too is like if they're talking about blending in with some of these groups that have made their way into some of these civil unrest scenarios like Antifa and Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, and trying to blend in with the agitators. The problem is like two guys like that trying to blend in like very rapidly, there's a high risk of them being called out. And we actually saw this a couple times where there were guys completely blacked out and then they were breaking windows into, it was a automotive business store, right? And they're like, he doesn't live here. They're basically trying to see who he was because he was breaking shop windows and he's just a random white dude by himself, but completely covered up. And so, if you're going to do that, like do a good job of blending in. And the moment you find your outlet to break off from that group, to give you your shot back to where you're trying to get, like that's, you need to take that. Like you want to get away from people as much as possible in a scenario like this. It's weird because the scenario they're kind of painting has blends where they're like, oh, well, this is like if you're being pursued. This is like social unrest. This is like, it's not focusing, which is fine, but it keeps bouncing between these different premises.
Yeah.
And it's not, so it's advice for certain things that is kind of getting mixed up into one big pot.
Agreed. So, I noticed that as well, especially when they started mentioning the cameras. And I was like, well, you guys still being followed by UAS? Because I remember that was mentioned in the first half of the video. And I was like, UAS infinitely drives up the danger level here. And obviously, jumping in with the crowds, you also got to realize, like, okay, so there are three groups in this particular situation, right? You have the people that just want to be left the fuck alone and get out of there. You have the agitators, and you have law enforcement. By hopping in with the agitators, you also risk getting straight steamrolled by law enforcement, and that shit has happened a lot. They've set literally deliberate traps where they were like, these guys are coming here to meet up and protest. And then they
happened here in Philly a couple times.
Yeah, dude. They turned on cell phone jammers. They fucking blocked off both ends of this long street. And they
date that shall not be named.
Tearing dudes up, man. So that's just the inherent risk that goes with that. I think that's just a risk versus reward thing. And it's also heavily based on timing. Like your timing to get into it has to be very, very precise. And then your timing to get out has to be super duper precise as well. Because obviously the lingering around, you risk running into law enforcement that will actually go, and start, laying hands on you.
And like people can tell when you're not culturally from there, right? Like if it's chaotic enough, yeah, and you play the part, they won't notice. But like if there's any sort of lull before movement to another where people are kind of like socializing and like you're not socializing, you're just standing there and they have a little bit more time to kind of like look you up and down, like you're not going to be able to fit in unless you really know the culture of that area and understand what's going on. So, I mean, I like that they're bringing up all this stuff because it gets people thinking through different scenarios. It's just a little jumbled in terms of like staying on an actual story that they're trying to paint. You know who did that as well, which I thought was a little interesting, was Dirty Civilian with the bug out video where they brought in that dude.
Dude, yeah, I
thought that was gonna be such a cool like little video trip where like they're pretending like they're driving up and like they're like acting like they're doing the rescue and like storming up some like apartment in Brooklyn somewhere, like hipsters like, oh, help us, like no, we're looking for his girlfriend. Like I was hoping they were gonna do something like that, and it was like it was cool. Like the guy had a dope rig, but it was just like this dude basically like, this is my rig. This is what I would take up to New York to rescue my lady. Here's the gun.
New York. Oh man, you going crazy.
I just thought that was funny, man.
Yeah, we could chop that up in a totally different conversation. One other thing too, so people are like, oh yeah, you can do this with, like with hobos and stuff like that. So depending on where you're at, the disposition of hobos is extremely different. If you don't think they are extremely territorial, if you think they are not willing to actually kill you, you got the game fucked up. So depending on where you're at, there have been plenty of people that have gotten their throat slit or gotten stabbed or gotten acid thrown on their face or whatever the case, right? That have gotten hurt by like hobos or homeless people, right? Because a lot of them aren't in their right minds.
Nope.
A lot of them are fucking strung out on drugs. So like be careful with that, right? Like that's not to discourage your point. The point is good.
Territorial.
But they're extremely territorial. So now you're talking about like, yes, if you can seize the moment and get something that you need to further push towards the goal of getting out, by all means. But yes, be extremely wary of hanging out around where hobos are at and stuff like that, man, because they are territorial. If you're not from around there, they will hurt you. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They won't mince words. Trust me. I'm not just saying trust me, bro, but like go ask anyone in a major metropolitan city. Go to Atlanta, go to some places in New York, San Francisco, Seattle. Go to any of those places. The bums there are not just like straight happy-go-lucky, man. Like, no, a lot of them are straight hyped up on drugs and they will fucking stab you.
Yep.
So
without a hesitation, like without any hesitation. Yep.
So you talked a bit about the cameras and AI and stuff like that. Like, yeah, wearing a mask. I mean, honestly, the technology is so advanced at this point. It depends on who's looking for you, but if you're talking about just an average store using cameras, typically the cameras aren't super good because you're having to look through windows and onto the street. So, can probably work pretty well.
What I will say is now, and people need to understand this, is that a lot of people give up the rights to their ring footage so that it can be accessed by law enforcement in times of need. I was working on that Cavalcante case here in PA, working in the Incident Command Center here, and they were constantly pulling pictures and stuff from ring cameras and going through and trying to ID them, and then license plate cameras and all that stuff. So the technology is there. It's just the thing that if you're being pursued, and I got to see this in real time with this whole fugitive thing, if you're being pursued, people don't realize it takes the wheels of organizations to start turning to get momentum. Like the first couple of days, if they don't randomly pick you up on the street somewhere and you have a place to kind of lay low, like get moving within those first couple of days. Get out of there within that first 24 hours, 48 hours at least, because it's going to take them some time to actually coordinate and then basically build that perimeter to box you in. So like, like I know they're just talking scenario and they're BSing and stuff like that, but like me, I'm not taking a 1 hour nap until I've put some serious distance between me and my pursuers. And I'm using my endurance and my personal knowledge and skill set in this subject to create as much distance and away from them, because I know they're going to try to cut me off. And if I can create that before they can figure that out, they'll think they'll have me enclosed and I'm already out on my way home, which is what the goal should be. Like it's always travel light and move. If you don't have, speed is security. If you go alone, you go fast, right? And if you don't have a team, then you better be moving.
Yeah. On top of that too, so if you're not necessarily being pursued, I know they say pursued in this, but that's probably being used pretty loosely. It's not going to be a coordinated force of any kind. It's going to be a bunch of people that are just looking to cause damage. So you have to realize as well that conflict ebbs and flows. It doesn't stay at a fever pitch the entire time, right? People get tired. They get hungry. All that stuff happens very naturally, right? And obviously the low points of the day are going to pretty much always consistently be around 02:30 to 04:30 every morning. You look at any city, that is usually when that's when everything's died down, right? So if you are planning on staying in place for an amount of time, when night falls, a lot harder to ID people, and you're able to move in darkness, the time to move would definitely be during those hours. It would be like not necessarily 12 o'clock. You still have like, obviously this is a very different scenario, but normally speaking, there's bars open. There's a bunch of, there's nightclubs. There's a whole bunch of stuff that like nightlife still happens. But if you're talking about a specific situation like this, where most people are probably calling it a day, even the agitators sleep, it's probably going to be around that 02:30 to 04:30 mark. So that's probably when I would set my clock if I was going to take a little snoozer to fucking start moving.
And when it comes to finding a place to sleep, it's make it uncomfortable and difficult for people to get to you. It's just like doing reconnaissance work on the green side in the middle of a jungle or somewhere. Like, you want to make it so there's really only one way to get up to you that someone can visibly see, and maybe you have a little back door or a little way to shimmy down, a drainage pipe as a backup plan. But you want to get yourself in a place where you're going to hear someone coming and you can set up some precautions, break some glass, put a bottle on the door handle, whatever you have available to you, but set those things in motion to give you a little bit of lead time to if you are sleeping, to gather up your stuff and pop out that back door. A lot of people, I've been in a couple of these urban E&E classes. The one that I really enjoyed was with Kevin Reeves of On Point, who passed away. Great dude, knew his stuff a lot. But, a lot of guys, it's just like, I don't know what it is, but they're afraid to get themselves into up into, a ledge somewhere in a parking garage on the backside where like you wouldn't even know that ledge was there unless you spun around and tucked yourself into it. And it's inaccessible except for that, getting around that one corner there. That's a perfect place to tuck yourself against the corner and just take a cat nap. But you want to make it, so that people can't get access to you easily, because we are not joking when we say these bums will rob you at any moment. Like, I have seen it multiple times with homeless people assaulting people on the street and stealing everything from them.
Yep.
And stabbing them in the process as well.
100%. I'll head on back to the video. Let me see. Can I play it from here? It doesn't let me play it from there. That's fine.
So if you have any types of footsteps, any big body imprints, this is something where you can take some type of branch, you can scoop it over, try to naturalize it a little bit and make it look like you weren't there as obviously, especially if you're being hunted or tracked by certain entities.
God damn it.
Making a change is never easy, but having Zen shipped directly to your door definitely makes it more.
Find anything here. If the city is still running, things are still going, you're typically going to be able to find things in the trash. No shit, we actually did just fine. This wasn't staged. That's awesome. That's a ton of nutrients and food right there. And it's going to survive. It's going to sustain us for a very long time. But as things begin to collapse, you're definitely going to run into more problems when it comes to food, especially the perishable food is going to begin to rot, so they're going to begin to throw it out.
No, it's like Walmart Captain Crunch.
Like meat.
Yeah,
okay.
A lot of people look at a steak and it starts to go bad after it's been thrown out, and they're like, "Oh, it's so good." However,
if it was cat food, I would have given major props. I'd be like, "Damn, dude,
that rancid meat,
y'all are living. You guys are walking the walk right now.
Whether that be sun-dry it, whether that be citric acid, if you have some type of heat source, that's better. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, though. Survival's not great. Insects are a great one. With insects, as long as it's smaller than your thumb, you can typically pull off the head and the legs so they don't get caught in your throat and just eat those suckers whole. It's not going to be fun. You might catch parasites, but a very low chance as it's smaller than the thumb.
The other thing is to make sure that it's an actual true insect. That means it has 3 segmented parts, 6 legs. So head, abdomen, thorax, and 6 legs. Make sure it's an actual insect.
That's a good gem.
Otherwise, you might be in something that could have some toxins inside of it that can hurt you.
Yeah, don't eat like a spider. You don't want to die.
It's a bad time.
Evading in a city is way less, I would say, exciting than like evading in the mountains in terms of like visuals, what you're seeing on camera. But it feels a lot more tense because there's a lot more contact with humans. That means there's a lot more chance for danger. The final things I want to caution you about is going to be weather. So being that you're constantly in shelter, you're probably going between buildings, there's a lot of overhead cover for you. So you're not going to feel the weather nearly as much. But as you get out of the city into the rural environment, into those fields where there's nothing really breaking the wind, especially up in the mountains, that weather's going to change drastically on you, and you might find yourself in a bad situation. So make sure that if that weather is bad, that you're prepared, that you're getting that clothing in the city that you need while you can get to it. The city is a literal, just tons of resources are going to be there. So if you can acquire those resources prior to leaving the city, do it. Don't put yourself at risk, obviously, unless you absolutely need to, such as water or other things to ensure that you survive. But at the same time, you get out into those environments and you're just going to die because you don't have enough stuff to cover your body. That's still going to be a bad time. This is all going to be situation dependent. Nothing that we teach here is a always situation. Make sure that you adapt it to wherever you are.
For instance, like if there was a flood, we find this in the trash can or anything else like that. We don't know how long it's been sitting in there, or if it's got water in it, if it got moldy or anything else like that. I probably would just pass it by. In those situations, we're looking for more using natural plants that are foliage in the area and stuff like that.
We've gone 2 weeks without eating.
Yeah, food shouldn't be a necessity. It's a nicety. Water, movement, gear for later on.
And Five does bring up a really good point, which is a lot of the vegetation that's planted within cities is not dangerous. They're not planting dangerous plants, and a lot of that stuff is actually edible. So I think this is probably going to be one of our most important videos, because probably the majority of you are going to be living in the city and dealing with this at some point, whether it be riots, whether it be natural disasters. This is stuff that you should study, that you should focus on. Now, we've been doing this from like a zero sum, as in we started our evasion with very little on us, maybe an extra jacket, maybe a bottle of water. But if you have a little bit of preparation, you have a go bag in your car, you have more stuff on you when you're traveling, more medical kit, small iodine tablets. This stuff can all pay dividends in the end. The other thing is going to be know your city, know the layout, know which direction is north, know which direction is south, know which type of plants are growing in there, know where you could possibly procure food. All these things, knowing these beforehand, could possibly save your life later on down the road. And as crazy as this all sounds, like we said before, you never want to be in a situation where you get to a point where you need to use this and you've done no preparation. You've never practiced it, you've never tried it, and you don't know it. There is probably nothing more heartbreaking, not even for you, but if you're not able to take care of your family in these types of situations. Don't let it go to that point. Make sure that you're prepared. This information is for you guys, so study up.
Solid way to close it out. I mean, that's at the end of the day, like, if you're in a city that isn't your home and that like you just happen to be there and you're not carrying a certain set of both EDC and additional things to support you there, you're doing it wrong. Like
That's the biggest thing, man. Is what do you carry with you every day? That's because the biggest thing is going to be if you don't carry shit with you in general, then you're going to be relying on your skill set. If you don't have your skill set, you're pretty much sunk. Opposite. So now you have tools. You still have some options, but if you have tools and no skills, you still have more options than someone that has neither. So it's just like if you're gonna have a little fanny pack. Me, I'm a huge proponent of fanny packs. I have tons of them.
Same
and I
here.
carry
Look,
it
I got
every day.
one back here.
I think mine's literally right here.
My normal one right here.
Yep.
I got a chest rig down there that I use when I'm out running. I get it, dude. I'm all
Yeah,
about
man.
because you know what's funny too is like if we go back through history, there was periods of history where dudes had man satchels and little leather hip bags and stuff like that because we had stuff we wanted to carry. It's only now when we hit like modern convenience, right? That like we don't have. I'll just charge it to my card. Why do I don't need to go and hunt food. I don't need to. This is a civilized society. I don't need to have a gun on me. All I need is my wallet, my phone, and my little laptop bag and my 10 ounces of water. And it's like that's cool until it's not. Then you're in trouble. then you're looking at it's like what always happens with me. Chris, do you have do you have a Leatherman? Yeah, I got one. Here you go. Other thing I always have on me, my flashlight, and I can't tell you how many times,
dude.
bro.
Yes.
This is the most useful thing I keep on me at all times, right here. And obviously, Surefire. This was given to me. I don't think I would have spent the money on it myself. I would have just stuck with my Streamlights. But this thing is phenomenal, and it has the hat clip, which I am totally on board with because I use it all the time. Especially today, I was up doing thermal insulation, and I was using that along with a work light. But to get down into the eaves and staple everything up, I had to drop in there with a little light to see with it. That's the one I used to carry before this one. That same one, USB.
Yep. So I'd say besides, I have 3 lights. I know I'm gonna get crucified for saying I have an O light, but that's when I don't. That's kind of like my backup to my backup. But I have 2 stream lights. So I have a Streamlight Wedge, which is charged via USB-C, which I'm not a huge fan of because I like to have lights that you can replace the batteries. So if I want to ever carry a spare battery on me to change out for one of my lights, I like the option to be able to have something extra in the event that dies.
Yep.
So that's one of my biggest problems with it, but it is a good light. Comes in stay on at 300 lumens, and then there's a momentary on for 1,000 lumens. And I think the battery life on it was like 3 hours for like 300 lumens, and it was like an hour and a half for 1,000. Might have been less than that. For 1,000, it might have been like 30 or 45 minutes, something like that. But it's still good though. And then obviously I have a really small one. You can put it on your hat as well, or you can carry a headlamp. There's that too.
That's what I have. That's my backup. Two AAA batteries, and that's my backup. If this is dead, I know that thing is always good. The Princeton, it's sealed. I use that thing in the military for years, and it's a tank. Like it's not the brightest light out there, but for a headlamp, you don't want it. You don't need it super bright.
You don't need it super bright. Yeah. Depends on the area you're in, but if you're talking about, you're trying not to be seen, that's probably not what you want. You don't want super bright.
Yep, and having that red lens is helpful.
Yeah. So big things, have source of light, something to cut with, fire if you can make it, or if you have lighter on you or something like that.
This is this is the easiest solution right here.
Yep.
And it's right next to this, and I can do almost everything I need to do with both these tools. I mean, with just this tool in general. Right. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be any of those, plier multi-tool setups.
Right. And it might seem a little bit like overkill, but it doesn't hurt to have a map of the place that you're in. So I have a map of Fayetteville in my fucking car, and it's super easy for me to throw that in my backpack or something like that if I'm rolling with a backpack that day. I know we like to utilize our phones and make sure like our phones are like the center of our fucking lives, but phones are not. And they're not invulnerable. They're not impervious, right? They can die like everything else can. They can be blocked like everything else can. But what you can do is you can also download offline maps onto your phone. So with your Maps app, if you have Apple, you can actually download an actual city, a city's map onto your phone from the Maps app, which is cool.
I use that. So I use one when we were traveling through Europe, right? And even without service in Europe, I could turn it on and the GPS tracking still worked on it, which was awesome. So
That's
like
awesome.
I wouldn't have any of the information for a lot of the places that we were kind of checking out and looking at, but like I could, when we were in Rome, like I never had to worry about knowing where we were at. I could literally just turn on my phone and it would give me, it would triangulate for me. The other thing too, and I kind of, I won't say I ragged on it, but I went and explored the topic a little bit more about the Meshtastic networks with the LoRa's, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have solid range if you have good line of sight. I think it's 10 kilometers is what I went and saw. So like if you have enough people in a city, you could literally cover probably 90% of that city with a lot of overlapping coverage. And that is a very secure way to keep comms up and running. The device itself uses extremely low power. So like I'm going to see if I can rig up basically a waterproof box. I'm going to use just a standard, rechargeable battery, and then a solar panel for like a security camera, because it'll just be perpetually charging that battery when the sun's out, and see if I can't stick it up in a tower somewhere. And because my buddy, who, is a lot more down the rabbit hole than I am on this stuff, and he's more tech oriented, if we put one between the two of us, we can communicate with that, and we don't need any cell whatsoever. So that's a big thing. And you can put together the LoRa itself is only like $50. So like you're talking, they used to be, but now guys are making them. And this is one with a case. Like if you get the one without a case, you can probably get it down to like $20, $25. And so all you need is a nice waterproof Pelican case and that solar power light and a few rubber gaskets. And you could go and hike that thing up into a cell tower somewhere and just hide it in a cell tower. And you would be able to basically have your own, your own comms, your own net that you guys can be passing information through. And it's encrypted. So whoever has permissions, whoever programmed it, they essentially can control that net and see what's on it. And it can be used in a variety of ways, including GPS tracking. So if you were good enough to where you could actively GPS track your team, or you guys are doing something within your cityscape, whatever it may be, you could have someone actively tracking you to give you guidance and kind of being the comms network on a secure comms, which is super valuable.
Right. And I know they use a lot of so like back when I was operational, I know we used ATAC. So you use ATAC. I know they have ITAC now for iPhone. I don't know how. I heard it didn't work super well.
They used it with this fugitive case. I saw the Border Patrol guys had it on their rigs.
ITAC?
Yep. So they had ITAC synced up with ATACs. I think it was. Oh, wow. So they had the program, because I saw them using essentially ATACs on their phones. And then they had, separate units that was actively tracking, had air being tracked, all this stuff in real time. And so I'm sitting in the command center, and there's like this 60-inch display monitor where it's showing all of the Border Patrol, everything. Like you can see all traffic moving that's being tracked, everyone who has theirs on. Obviously, it wasn't every guy, but like when they paired up the guys that had them with the groups, you could be actively tracking your groups while you're breaking brush and stuff like that. So it was a really interesting dude, because this guy wasn't what people may amount to be as a survival expert. They never are. Like I don't even really consider myself a survival expert, and I've taught this shit, for a number of years. But he basically lived off a watermelon he stole, and he'd almost gotten stepped on multiple times when they were breaking brush. What people don't realize is that Pennsylvania undergrowth in August is triple canopy. So, and then in addition to that, we had all these thunderstorms rolling in multiple times throughout the day. So every time a thunderstorm comes in, your air asset has to go down because there's a lightning hazard. So you might get a blop, on your infrared, and you're like, oh, there's some guy in here, and you're sending, you're trying to direct these guys in triple canopy bushes in the direction that you think, and no one's out there carrying a compass. Like, no one's being like, oh, Azimuth, I'm going 307, no one's doing that. They're just trying to figure out what this guy is telling them to go based off of their general location. And then your air asset goes down, and so this guy, he's just chilling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it cracked me up, but like they did a good job. It's a jungle. Like, people don't understand.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Even in North Carolina, it's the same thing. Like the East Coast foliage, especially along the Appalachians, is a monster. And that's why they say, like, no one's ever successfully taken the Appalachians through any war.
No.
Like, there's a reason for that. It is. It's like Afghanistan. Like, you're not.
The terrain is unforgiving as hell.
Yes. And there's a ton of stuff like that can mess you up out there, between abandoned caves and like just weird stuff as well that I won't even get into. But like, there's some weird stories about the Appalachians.
Yeah, dude.
So people don't understand, like, it's a different type of mountain. Like, it's not like the Rockies. It's not like the Sierras. Like, it's some forgotten old world stuff going on in some of these areas up there still, where you like walk in there and you're like, oh, like is this what it feels like to be around the old gods?
Yeah.
Like, it's they'll make you think twice about the area, man.
Yeah. So I all in all, I think the video was good. I did have a hard time kind of following the track of what they were doing, because we mentioned it before. They kind of bounced all over the place as far as like the exact details. Like, are you being tracked? Are you being tracked with ISR or UAS? If you're not being tracked with UAS, or if you are being tracked with UAS, you have to get off the street.
I feel like
it's really hard to not be tracked without it.
If they could have broken it down to 3 scenarios and done like a mini movie for each scenario.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot better, actually.
Because then they could be like, listen, because my considerations for like how I survive is completely dependent on if someone's actively pursuing me.
Yes.
Like, if I'm just trying to, like, let's say a plane goes down in the Yukon and I have my pack that's in there and I got to make it back to civilization. I know where the closest, city, town, whatever, and I have to make it that direction. I'm going to go quickly, but I'm also going to be careful and take my time and pick a route that I know is going to keep me safe so that I can make it home. But if I'm in some random city, like, and shit goes down, like some 13 hours type stuff, or, you have a government changeover or a coup, and you're trying to get out of there because all of a sudden America isn't the good guy anymore in that specific country, my way of getting out is going to be completely different. And I'm going to tell you the solution. The solution isn't turning water bottles into filtration systems. It's money. That's the solution. Cold, hard cash will get you out of there with virtually no issues. You'll be able to get out with a car, family in tow, all your luggage, and you're just paying your way out, because everybody doesn't know what's going to happen, and no one's really loyal to the crown when the crown changes every couple of years.
No. But you know what they are loyal to?
Money
and violence. Those are the 2 most understood languages on the planet.
Without a doubt.
And
I'd rather use money than violence, because when I'm in a country that I don't understand the culture, and I might have my family with me, or I might be with a couple boys, and we're like, hey, we need to get out of here. It's a lot easier to stay under the radar with a few bribes and having that stuff already set up. Like, it's not hard to find those people, guys. Like, it really isn't. I have I'll say that for offline. I don't want to call myself out. Like, don't say stories that you're afraid are going to come back to you. So I'm not going to jump into that.
We'll talk about that offline. Yeah.
There's a couple of those there, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, same, dude. There's some stuff I legit I will never talk about. And I'm actually probably going to cut this part out, too, that we were just been talking about. But, yeah, all in all, man, really, really good video. I thought the video was very, very entertaining. I probably got more nuggets towards the end. I'm talking like the last like 5 to 10 minutes of the video than I did for most of the video. And granted, that's because some of the knowledge is we already knew, and then some of it was there was nothing. I don't think there's anything controversial, but like some of the hobo stuff, I think that the dangers of that need to be highlighted.
Yeah.
Because once again, it's Go ahead.
Food procurement. Let me give y'all a little tip on this. If you want to survive in a city or you have to survive in an urban area for a period of time, stores throw out food every single day.
All the time.
Restaurants throw out perfectly good food every single day. I've gone into trash cans when I've been to these courses or when I've been temporarily without shelter. I've gone through dumpsters and found completely intact takeout meals that have been sitting in there, completely wrapped in the bag, where the person never came and picked it up or whatever, and they just threw it out, and it was like a 5-course family meal of like Chinese takeout food, which doesn't go bad anyways, right? There's all like we live in such abundance. This is not the same in other countries, and usually those spots are already taken. But here in this country, at least in this day and age right now, you can go behind any Walmart, Acme, Giant, whatever, and I can guarantee you, if you can get access into their dumpster, there is food that is virtually untouched, from bananas to anything you can think of. But you have to be able to get dirty, and you have to be able to think about where this waste is coming from. Even the places like Dunkin' Donuts, you're going to find dozens of donuts thrown away.
Bagels
every single day. So, like, that's an unlimited food hack right there if you're really smart about it and you're looking around. And oftentimes, too, like, being a real human being and just being like, hey, man, I'm down on my luck. Do you mind if I grab an apple? Most people are going to give you the apple, especially if they see you like dirty and you maybe been sleeping outdoors a few days. You're going to, you just have to be humanistic about it and actually connect with that person for a little bit.
Right. No, great points all around, man. Once again, this was not a massive critique video.
No, they did a good job.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We definitely enjoyed filming it. So if you guys want to follow either of us, you can find me over on Instagram under skypirate_actual. And then Chris over here, you can find him at The Emergency Expert, no spaces. If you guys have any comments, concerns, please drop them in the comment section. And if you have anything that you want us to kind of talk through next, go ahead and drop that down there too, or drop that in the inbox. Either way.
Nice.
All right, guys. You got anything to say to the people?
Go train and get prepared.
Go train. Hell yeah. All right, guys. Well,
all right, guys.
We will talk later. No, I wanted to stop the actual recording. Jesus Christ, man. There we go. End recording.